Hello, everyone. Welcome to another MixPre Monday here on the Sound Devices YouTube channel. My name is Laura Sillanpää. I am a member here at Sound Devices who works in the technical support department. And today we're going to be talking again about the MixPre II series. Our example today is going to be focused in on the MixPre III. So if you have one of those at home, you can follow along with that. I know we've got quite a few people here in the chat. I am monitoring the chat, so we will get to these questions probably after we get through the main example that I'm going to run through, which will be all about USB audio interfacing. This was a highly requested topic. Many people submitted questions. I've been going through your questions as they've been coming in, and so that's going to be our main focus for this stream. I've got this lovely MixPre II set up right here, which we're going to zoom in on right there. And you can see I've got a mic connected here at channel 3, and I've got some sound coming in from the USB audio inputs on this device. So anyways, we will be running through an example both with a Mac computer and also with Windows PC for those of you who are PC users out there. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Saw a little reminder there in the chat. Just got to shout it out because we'll have more of these things more often, the more they're requested. So, setting up your MixPre II as an audio interface. Why would you want to do this? What are the applications that you're going to use this for? Well, a big one is Zoom calls and Microsoft Teams and Skype, interfacing with people on a call. For that, you're going to need something called a mix minus, which many people have probably heard of and maybe seen an example video of. Maybe you need to stream audio into a program like Pro Tools or Logic or even Audacity. Maybe you're a voiceover artist. Or maybe you're a streamer like us right here, working with the SM7B running through a MixPre to go live to YouTube. You might need to set up your device as a USB audio interface. So the first thing to understand here is that there are a lot of different ways to do one singular thing with the MixPre. There's a lot of different methods, and you have to figure out what works best for you. You've got inputs coming into the machine, and you've got outputs going out. So you got to figure out a way to talk to your computer for whatever application you need yourself. In this scenario, what I have set up over here on this MixPre is I have audio coming into USB 1 and 2, but I don't have it routed to any of these channels. This is because I just wanted to listen back to USB 1 and 2 that's coming from my computer. Now, something that a lot of people seem to miss out on is the fact that you can go into your menu right here, click on this headphone icon, and you can change what you're listening to on the MixPre. You have the option to listen to left-right stereo, which is default. You have the option to listen to left-right mono, which just turns that same feed into a mono signal. You can go to USB 1 and 2, which are the channels coming in from your computer, or you can make your own preset. So a way that a lot of people like to do this USB routing is to just make a preset in your headphones and not use up any of your channels. Because remember, whatever we're bringing into the MixPre has to be allocated to some sort of channel or some sort of thing that we're able to monitor it from. So one option is to come in through the headphones. Another option is to come in on a channel. So for this headphones option, I'll show you an example of making a preset because someone specifically asked about this question. If I were to make a headphone preset, I'd go into the second page. I'd click on Edit Headphone Preset. I'd select one of these 4 internal slots. Let's just say preset number 1. And you're brought to this routing matrix. Now, this might be confusing if you've never seen this page before, but you've got 2 sort of rows going on here. You got 1, 2, 3, U1 and U2, and then left and right. And then the same thing on a bottom row. This means this is your left ear and this is your right ear for your headphones. So if I wanted to listen to USB 1 and 2 and my mic that I have connected here at input channel number 3 in this particular setup, I'd scroll using my little headphone encoder wheel to highlight on channel 3, and then I'd put U1, which is USB 1 in my left ear. And I'd do the same thing, do channel 3 and USB 2 in my right ear. And you might be asking, okay, what's up with the blue color on this page? You can see we have a little key for the colors at the bottom. Green means pre-fade, blue means post-fade. Pre and post-fade, what do you think those things mean? Well, pre means my level coming from the actual gain setting on this channel, meaning if I had this set to 64 dB for this mic that's sitting on my desk, that's what I'd be listening to. Post would mean, oh, gotta go back up there. Sometimes I forget where things are. We were editing preset 1. Post would mean the position of this fader. So if these are highlighted in blue, I know that myself turning this down would mute this channel in my ear. All right. So there's a good example. If you wanted to save this preset, you would put a name on it. So let's just say I wanted to make this a USB preset. I'll name it really basic and just say USB. Okay, that's it. So now when I go to my headphone preset options, you'll see that this has been renamed. Preset 1 is now USB. I click on that. If I were to throw this pair of headphones on, I would be hearing channel 3 and the USB channels coming back in through my computer. All right. So, what if you need to record who's on the other side of this, USB setup? Let's say you're in a Zoom call or something. Maybe you're doing an interview and you want to have a reference for the person on the other side. I've done this many a time, okay? So you're talking to somebody through Zoom. You have your own microphone set up that you're recording. They're recording their own mics on their side, but you want to make sure that they line up correctly. And if they forget to record or, God forbid something happens and you lose that audio, you have a backup of their sound. What you would do for this is you'd bring the USB channel into an actual input channel here on the MixPre. So you can see in this case, I've got my mic going on to channel 3 because I want to bring in stereo sound from my USB channels on the Mac that I'm connected to here. So 1 and 2, there's nothing going on over here. So if I click in on channel 1, I'm in advanced mode, by the way, just in case anybody is unfamiliar. That's why there's so many options in this menu. I'm going to click to go to the second page. I'm going to tap input, and I'm going to change this to USB 1. I'm going to use this quick little trick to link the two together, 1 to 2. This just means I'm bringing in stereo channels as opposed to just one mono channel. If you just had one person speaking on the other side and you weren't in dire need of stereo sound, you could also just do this with no linking, just bring in USB 1, and that's fine. Okay. Back, and then let's say, you can see I've got the playback of the stream coming through this, so that's why you can see level coming in on USB 1. All right, so if I was to turn this up, I need to make sure that I balance and center pan this second, because whenever you link the two channels together, the first becomes your fader and the second becomes your pan knob. You can see I've got this sound of the stream coming in on 1 and 2. These channels are all armed, so if I wanted to record what was coming back in here, I'd have no issue doing so. Okay. All right. What happens now, though, with our routing to the computer? We need to send something back to the other person on the other end of the call. If we were to send them our left-right mix right now, they would just get a loop back feed of themselves. This is going to cause a lot of problems. So we have to change our USB output routing. I'd go into the menu, click up there, outputs, and you can see that there are a lot of USB outputs. You got USB channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in the MixPre II, you've got these 6 different USB outs you can map to your computer. Each one of these USB options has a whole myriad of things that you could pick from. So I could send the bus left, bus right, track 1, track 2, track 3. I could send my headphone left ear out, my headphone right ear out, or I could send out on my stereo output assignments. The stereo output is that 3.5 millimeter output on the left-hand side, right below the USB connection. That's when you'd use those. There is an example video online of using the stereo out to create a mix minus that is on our YouTube channel. If you want a really in-depth look at that option, I recommend checking that out if you're curious. I like to do things pretty custom because I work from a Mac primarily, and I'm working in all sorts of programs. Pro Tools, Audition, Logic, Ableton. So it's going to change all the time. And maybe I need to feed my stereo out to some monitors. So I don't really want to use the stereo out option. What I'm going to do in this scenario, where we're on a pretend call with the other person, is just send them channel 3. Because that's the only one I'm using a mic on. I'm not using 1 and 2. I don't need to send them any of my headphones. I don't need to send them anything else. I'm just going to send them channel 3. So we'll go back to here. You'll see I'm on USB output 1 right here. I'm going to deselect this. On default, USB outputs 1, 2, 3, etc. are all set to the ISO tracks. So that's why you saw 1 highlighted there, because I'm working from factory default settings. Okay, if I go to track 3, I want to send this post fade because if we're in the middle of a call and I know I need to cough or something, or I need to cover up noise, say I got a dog in the room, I can just kill that fader down and they won't hear me on the other end. It's like a manual control for you speaking to the other person on the other side of things. So I'm going to set that to USB output 1. Track 3 is going there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on USB output 2. I'm going to set track 3. And then for all the other ones, I'm just going to get rid of any assignment. So you see this is blank, perfect. This one's got track L highlighted. I'm going to get rid of that. This one's got USB 6. I'm going to get rid of that. You might be wondering, okay, Laura, why are you sending just on USB output 1 and USB output 2 the same thing? The purpose of this has to do with the way that your computer is going to interpret the sound that's coming through. If you are using a program like Zoom or Teams, it's going to default think that you have a stereo channel coming in, like a 2 in, 2 out, because that is the standard for most computers. And sometimes you can go in there and manipulate it. If you like to make aggregate devices in audio MIDI setup, or you have your own routing matrix set up on your computer, yeah, you can go in there and mess around with it. I don't like to do that. I like to just send the same thing out on a stereo output, essentially, from the MixPre 3. Say, hey, we're done with this. It's pretty simple, cut and dry. All right, so these are the settings that I have on my MixPre. And mind you, I am in advanced mode, so I'll give an example of basic mode as well once we're done with this. But how does this sound then get to my computer? So give me 1 second here. I am going to open up my system settings, and we're going to take a look at the computer. All right, I've got my Mac right here. If I go to sound in my system settings, you can see I've got all sorts of things over here. I've got a bunch of Pro Tools, bridges, my MacBooks, microphone, and then the MixPre 3 too. You can see you've got an input option and an output option. Oh, right now I'm using actually a multi-output device. So let me switch that over to just the MixPre 3 too. So if I set the MixPre 3 2 as my input and my output device on this Mac, it's going to follow all of the options I've already set up on the MixPre. You do not need a driver to use the MixPre 3 2 with a Mac. So let me show you audio MIDI setup. This is the other program that you would use to make your selection when it comes to sample rate and bit depth. You can see I've got a massive list over here too. The MixPre 3 2 is what's currently selected. And you'll see I also have those input and output options. On input, if I click on this, look at all these options. Okay, so you have every variation possible. 16-bit integers at 44.1, 48K, 96, and so on and so forth as they go up. Because the MixPre has the option to record in 16-bit, 24-bit, or 32-bit float, that's why you get all these crazy options in here. So if you wanted to send all 6 channels, all 6 USB output channels from your MixPre II, which I know might be confusing for a couple of you because, you know, the MixPre only has those 3 physical inputs, but I'll explain that as well. You would go down here and you'd select whatever matches the format that you want going out. I have 4 channels currently assigned here, but you saw earlier, I only assigned 2 USB output channels. So let's just take it on down to 24-bit integer, 48K, 2 channels, because that's all I'm really using. And if I select that, you'll see it automatically make the change. On my output options, I've got also a 2-channel 24-bit integer at 48K. That's perfect. 24-bit 48K, that's standard audio. That's how we do things around here. Pretty simple. All right. So that's a basic setup for sending sound from your MixPre into your computer for something like a Zoom call. Then, when you have your headphones plugged in here, if I change my headphone setting right quick to go from USB back to left-right stereo, then I get the lovely option to listen to not only my computer, which is taking up these 2, but also myself, and I can adjust as needed. So I can turn this fader all the way around. Say I even turn the person down on the other end of the call, you know, and it would be no issue. They wouldn't hear anything that affects them on that side of things. They would hear the effect if I also killed my own microphone, but we want that. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully everybody's following along all right. I know there's a lot going down in this chat, and I can't keep up with all that while doing this first explanation, but we'll get there. So save your questions if you have some burning questions, because we will get to those near the end. All right, so that was an example of doing something like a mix minus. By the way, a mix minus, you know, people use terms and throw terms around all the time in the audio world. A very easy way to understand a mix minus is you're sending everything you're listening to out to the other person except themselves. You're trying to prevent an issue. You know, you're giving them a full feed of everything they need, just not a feed of themselves that's going to loop back and cause issues. Okay. And then also, the other neat little thing about that is the fact that you're able to record those channels then. That's the other important bit. Okay. So what do we do if we want to send in a microphone, or say a series of microphones, into some recording software in my computer? So a lot of people ask about this because, you know, you can record on the MixPre all day, no prob, but what if you want to record at the same time into something like Pro Tools or, you know, Audition or something? All right, so let me make some adjustments on my computer because I gotta open up Pro Tools. Here, we'll just do the simple. So, I'm showing Pro Tools because this is an industry standard program that a lot of people use who are in the sound world. We might cut away from the computer because I know it'll take a hot minute for this thing to load. Thanks very much. But, yeah, Pro Tools, I know not everybody out there is probably using that, but it will give you the idea of the example. And I'll also show Ableton because I know we've got quite a few Ableton users who have written us in the past. By the way, just as a reminder to anyone out there, if you're ever having an issue with any of this kind of stuff and you have a specific question, you can drop us a line and contact support at Sound Devices. Just go to sounddevices.com, click on the support tab, and you'll see an option to submit a question or inquiry. All right, we can cut back now to Pro Tools. So I just have a very basic layout here. You can see I actually have something already routed, but I'll show you how I get there. So if you're in Pro Tools, you're very familiar with this setup window where you have the hardware option, playback engine, and especially I/O. This is where everybody goes into. So I have set, you can see, the MixPre II as our playback engine here. It's a very easy thing to do. You just like pick it out of this Dropbox little list thing that comes down, and you can see it's all those same options that we saw in our audio MIDI setup. You'll notice like everything, you should see all of the inputs and outputs, you know, all of the, I should say, audio options on your device whenever you get into a menu like this. Okay. All right, we'll close that. What I'm going to show you here is I've got the I/O set up to be bringing in audio from the MixPre here. Oh, I believe it's already, oh no, the MixPre is already our playback engine because I already selected that. So if I wanted to assign those two outputs that I had, sent out of my MixPre, I could make a track. You just make a track by going up to the top and you do, oh, can't believe this is getting me. New track. There you can see I've got audio 1 and audio 2. And then I put my little mix thing over to the right-hand side. You go into your interface and you see all of these options. So you can notice, ooh, this is interesting. Okay. Previously, when I had this session open, I was using 4 channels. So you can see it says there's no path found here because 3 and 4 aren't available. Because remember, we changed in the audio MIDI setup for this to just be a 2-channel input. So that's why you'd get a message like that. If you ever find a path that's missing, maybe you need to go into audio MIDI setup. Okay, interface, input 1, interface, input 2. We know these are both the same exact thing because that's what I assigned on my MixPre. And you can see, look, the level of these two are coming in right here in Pro Tools. Now watch this. If I cut to the MixPre, all right, let's see if I go to my MixPre and we kill this channel. What's going to happen if I kill channel 3? Let's go back to Pro Tools. And they're gone because my fader is affecting the level that's coming into this channel, So that's great. If you're sitting at your desk and you need to do a voiceover recording or something, and maybe you want to adjust the level right there with your fader, boom, that's how you'd route it. And again, you can send anything out on these channels. The reason why they're just denoted as, USB output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is just so you can organize them and keep them, right in your brain. This is the same thing with any other USB audio interface device. It works the same way. So let's say if I wanted to change the channel, let's go over to the MixPre. Now we're going to do something crazy, guys. I'm just showing this as an example. All right, let's unplug my mic there from channel 3 and let's move it to channel 1. I'm going to change the input type. I'm just showing this as an example of how everything is customizable. You can route anything anywhere. It's pretty sweet. I'm going to unlink these channels as well. Let's make sure I have some gain on here. And you know that whenever you unlink channels, you do have to correct the pan if you had them linked together. So like on channel 2, I'd have to correct this pan as well. That's just a little side note for everybody following along at home. Okay, so now I have my mic here, my SM58 on the table, coming into channel 1. This is going to screw us up because we changed our output routing all to be track 3. How do we correct this? Easy money. Just go into the menu, click menu, outputs. Let's go to USB 1. Oh, we're actually on track 1 now. Switch this over. I'm going to do the same thing on USB output 2. Switch this over to track 1 just so I have the same thing. Now, if I cut back into Pro Tools, seamlessly, I switched over. Look at that. I've got level coming in again to Pro Tools right there. Seamless. So that's how easy it can be. You just have to be familiar with the software that you're using. Pro Tools, I know, is kind of intimidating. There's a lot of bells and whistles all around this one. So I'm going to show an example too within Ableton. So let me close out all this stuff and get that opened up. Logic Pro is another one that a lot of people use. I do not have Logic Pro on this computer, so I am not showing that example right now, but Ableton is another one I know a lot of people are fans of. Okay, we're going to let that guy load. And while we're doing this, let me just make the comment. I have this MixPre connected to my computer with a USB-C to C cable. If you've got a Mac that doesn't have the USB-C cable, say it's an older MacBook or an iMac or something that only has the USB-A, the chunkier type of cable. I was looking for here it is. You can use the MX USB-Y cable as a solution because you don't want to use a USB-C to USB-A cable because it's not going to be able to supply enough power for your MixPre because the MixPre is pretty, demanding. So we do have a cable that has dual USB-A connection on one side and USB-C connection on the other. All right, we're flowing right along. So let's put this guy back over here. So now we're in Ableton. We can cut over to that. This is Ableton Live. I have to go up into settings and select on the option that says audio right here. Again, we see a similar window that you would see in any other program, your audio input device and audio output device. I click on the audio input device, select the MixPre II. Again, you can see 2 in, 2 out because I customized it and selected that for my own use. And I can change the output device to send the stereo feed back to my MixPre. Boom, we got it. And we're ready to go. So then when I go to an audio channel, and in Ableton, this is where you select your little option for input routing. You can see I can actually bring in a stereo channel too if I want. I have the option of channel 1 or channel 2. I bring in channel 1. And then you can see, look at this. I've got level coming in here right there. And again, that corresponds with channel 1 on our MixPre. If I were to go to the MixPre and kill this channel, so if we were to switch over there, kill channel 1 so we have no sound coming through, and we go back to Ableton, you see the sound has left us. It is gone because I'm controlling it all from that one fader. And what a great option, right? All right, so let's say you're not a Mac user. Let's say you're a PC user. I know we got a bunch of PC homies out there, so let's kill this and we'll switch over. I have a Windows 11 laptop here. Windows 10, it'll probably be pretty similar. Might even be easier to find things, in my opinion, because Windows 11, there's stuff all over the place. But I'll show you where to go, because I had to figure it out myself. All right, so let me log into here. I'm going to have to switch over our HDMI and switch over my MixPre's connection. So I'll turn off the MixPre. Plug in our HDMI right there. And then I've got my MX USB-Y cable. Again, if you don't have a computer that has USB-C ports, you should be using a cable like this in order to get proper powering. This cable is available, I believe, on our website. If not, you can always go to our resellers, go to sounddevices.com, click on the option that is furthest to the right, I believe that says store. Here, I'll cheat. I'll look on our own website and remember where this is. Shop now. There you go. And click on find a reseller. And then you can find whoever is closest to you. Or you can do the classic thing and just use Google, All right, so let's make this connection. Apologies if I'm off axis here, Lots of moving around this SM7B. I'm sure there are plenty of people in the chat who also use the SM7B. All right, we'll switch this guy around. Connect up right here. And I'm powering the MixPre back on. Now we've got our Windows 11 computer here. So we can go to this. I'm just going to go to sounddevices.com because with our Windows 11, there is something very important that you need if you want to use the higher channel count, or not higher channel count, the higher channel count, or, oh, hold up, our HDMI is not working. So, live troubleshooting, live from the Sound Devices headquarters. We're going to try and make a little adjustment here to see. It looks like, if we go to it, all right, we're golden. So there you go. Insight into live troubleshooting technical support right there. So what was I saying? Let me go back into, oh yes. Okay. If you're using a PC, you might want to download the ASIO driver because maybe you need to use multiple USB output channels. With a PC, you have a limitation in that if you natively just connect MixPre to PC computer, no drivers required, you get 2 channels in and 2 channels out. You don't get that whole option in the audio MIDI setup that you saw on a MacBook. You need a driver to do that, which is fine. We provide an ASIO driver for you to do that. That's ASIO, ASIO driver. All right, so let me show you what it would work. How it would work if you didn't have the ASIO driver, because you could still use the MixPre, you would just have some limitations. So if I go into my settings, so if I just do my settings in here, I have sound options right there, boom, click on that. You can see it says speakers, MixPre 3.2, and it says input, MixPre 3.2. Speakers, it means output, input, same exact thing. So some programs use different words. Whenever something says like recording and speakers, that just means input and output. I don't know why they changed the language. I'm not in charge. Okay, so if I wanted to use my MixPre like this, I'd have no problem doing so. I can open up an Audacity session right here, go to my audio setup, make sure my recording device is this digital audio interface. And then if I just record and I tap on this microphone right here, boom, you see that I've got levels coming in there. By the way, I'm only recording on one channel. That's why it's only showing up on the one. So I've got levels coming in here, but let's say I wanted to have a ton of tracks in here, or if I had some other program installed on this PC and I wanted to map, 5 different instruments if I had a MixPre 6.2, or let's say 8 different instruments I'm bringing in on a MixPre 10.2. We're going to need a driver to do that. So let's go over to sounddevices.com. We're using this handy dandy search bar. Look, you can see I've looked this up before. ASIO. Type that in. Okay, we've got a couple different results here. Uninstalling. And there it is. ASIO driver for the MixPre II series. We're going to click on that. Look at that. Takes us right to this page where it says, do you want to download it for Windows 10 or 11 and Windows 7? Because, we got to give some love to those people out there still running with Windows 7. Okay, so I'll go into my downloads. You can see I've done this as an example previously. It's uninstalled right now on this computer, though. If I click on this, brings us into this folder where I've got an application, and I need to extract it. I'm just going to say, yep, let's go. Now I get this folder, and we see an application, a program to run a .exe. Going to double click on that. Do you want to allow this app to make changes? Yes, because we want to allow it to, manipulate our audio options. Yes, I do. Okay, my language is English. Yes. Install the driver, please. Oh, forgot I need to click on the actual icon. All right. Sweet graphics that we've got going on right here. Thanks, Windows 11. Installation is completed successfully. Not necessary to reboot. Thanks very much. We'll exit out of this. We'll get out of my folders. All right. So now we should see something new in this settings option. Right now this says still MixPre 3, MixPre 3. I'm going to do a quick power cycle on the MixPre 3 and see if it's identified differently. So let's turn off the MixPre 3. I'm going to power it back on. Sometimes it says to, a reboot is not required on your computer, and sometimes it lies. And you do have to reboot your computer. Oh, no, a reboot of the MixPre did it. All right, look at that. So we see this show up. Speakers. Oh, I didn't mean to click on that. How do I go back? Whoops. Speakers. Now, instead of saying MixPre 3.2, it says these numbers. MixPre Audio 2.9, 0.96, 0.2. This means we're using the driver. This is a good sign. So we're using the driver for our output, and we're using the driver for our input. Now, I bet you're wondering the ultimate question. Okay, so we installed this driver in order for us to use the higher sample rates and the multiple channels. Where am I going to control that kind of stuff? And you'd be dumbfounded. You'd be like searching sound control panel and trying to figure out where is this on Windows 11. Well, I did the hard work for you. Just scroll down on this page and you see this option that says more sound settings. Can you believe it? This is where everything's hidden. More sound settings brings up this page where I can go into playback and recording. Remember, playback just means outputs. Recording just means inputs. And I can go in there and, manipulate and change the settings that I want. So I've got line in coming in here. I got to click on properties right there. And then you have to go another level deep and click on advanced. And here's your options. This is where you're finally going to see all of these different options for 4401, 48, 96, and all of that jazz. So this is where I'm going to have to come in to make these different selections, which I know it's buried, and I know that's frustrating, but that's how it is. So I say apply. Okay, close out of that. Let's go back to playback. Speakers, that other one I had set to 48K. So I'm going to make sure this also matches. Yep, that's what I want. Okay. And we get on out of there. And now you can see in my audio setup, playback device. Oh, I might have to actually close out of Audacity and reopen it. I'm not saving this project because I think Audacity loads the whatever driver you're using upon boot up. So let's see. Audio setup, recording device. Yep, look at that line in MixPre Audio. Okay, if I click record on there, I tap on this mic right here. Yes, we're getting level. Huzzah. So, there's the example of using this with a PC. Of course, many of you, I'm sure, aren't using Audacity. You might be using some other software. It's the same idea. Oh, I did not mean to do that. We'll just get out of here. We don't need to save this. Okay. It's the same idea across the board. That's how you install the ASIO driver. If you need to uninstall it, go to sounddevices.com, type in ASIO, and you'll see that option pop up where it says uninstalling for uninstalling the ASIO driver. That's super helpful. I even go back and follow those instructions because I forget how to uninstall it sometimes. So that's how to do it with a Mac and with a PC. I'm going to switch back over to my Mac so I can take a look at this chat. I have a couple of questions from people who sent them earlier that I'm going to go through briefly too. And I'll try and answer some questions that are coming through in the chat because I think we still have a bit of time left. So let me make the switch over. Thanks again for everybody tuning in today. Hope you're having a lovely October. I gotta switch these cables as well because we are going back to the Mac. Okay. Turn this guy back on. Close out of this. And we'll get over here. All right. So, I have a couple that were really interesting to me that I'm going to cover on here. And then I'll address some of these in the chat. I do see one that just showed up. What's the news? We'll hit the news right at the end. That's going to be your little teaser. All right. Someone asked a question that I thought was fascinating. When would you be making a mistake by choosing to record in 32-bit float? I thought this was a great question because it really brought up the topic of uh, know what your job is on a set. Because sometimes people will throw stuff at you as a sound mixer, and you'll be like, wait, why are we doing that? And sometimes that's an important question. If a producer comes and asks you, we need this all to be delivered in 32-bit float, asking that question of why can be a good way to go, because oftentimes people just hear a higher number and they think higher number, better. So do it to the best we can possibly do. Set it to the highest sample rate, to the highest bit depth. But if you send this to a post-production house that is expecting 48K 24-bit standard audio, as is the standard across the world, they're not going to know what to do with that file. So make sure that wherever your files are going, the people who are editing those know what to expect. So I would say you would be making a mistake in recording in 32-bit float if it's making a whole lot of work for other people when it isn't deemed necessary. 32-bit float is a great tool, but again, it's a tool. The same way all this stuff is with our mixers, recorders, wireless systems. You have to know how to use the tool. So they can make your life very easy. The same way Noise Assist could make your life very easy. But if you put Noise Assist cranked all the way up in a quiet environment, you're going to be kind of ruining the audio track. So know how to use the tool, and that's what gets you ahead as a sound mixer. Okay. Another person had asked, what's your sweet spot during gain staging? Well, I'll give you a little tip right now. We're recording through an SM7B. I know someone had asked specifically about the SM7B and running into a MixPre, and I can tell you what this level is at. Do we know what the gain setting on channel 1 of that MixPre 10 over there is set to currently? 65? We're up in the 60s, all right? So this is a dynamic microphone that's got to be set pretty hot. If this was a boom, you'd be way below that. That's your physical gain setting, but the most important thing is the actual metering. So if we cut over here to the MixPre really quick, now I'm going to pull this SM58 off of here so I can speak directly into it. You can see on the meters right now, I was a little hot right there. I want to be dancing between -20 and -12 for the most part, dancing in the yellows, but you can see my limiter is really engaging if I push it on this SM58. So I'm getting a good level on the ISO channel. I do have the fader up a little hot, so I'd probably be right about there for this SM58 as an example, if that's any aid to you out there who asked that question. All right, put this guy back on there. Post-production people do know what to do with 32-bit. I would say it definitely depends on who those post-production people are. Sometimes you're sending them more work than necessary. So, because if you're on one of these bigger productions, you actually get an assignment in terms of what you're delivering and what they're expecting. So you need to make sure you're following whatever is laid out for you. Just responding to that question in the chat. And it's not to say that they, wouldn't know what they're doing. 32-bit float can absolutely be a lifesaver. If you're stuck in an area where you need to drop a bag and leave, 32-bit float's going to be your friend. Absolutely. So, and I've used it, actually, I can attest to that, because I did have to drop a bag somewhere before, and I did record in 32-bit float, and it was really hot on playback. But then you take it into your editing program, normalize it, and get great tracks out of it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, here's a good question that relates to our USB audio thing. Someone asked, is there a way of locking the system to 48 kilohertz for your sample rate? I've created a preset, but maybe there's another way. Once I did a recording and realized that the system changed to 41 without me knowing. This is an awesome question because I can tell you the reason behind why that happens. Let's say you took your MixPre out. It was set to 48K. You did a whole day of recording. You go to the DIT or DIT, and you're transferring data to them by using this USB-C connection. If you're using the USB-C cable to connect to their computer to offload media, and this is set as a audio interface and not just a power only connection, it's gonna automatically conform the MixPre to whatever settings the computer had, which on default is usually 44.1. So let's take a look at the MixPre really briefly here to explain this. If I go to menu, I go to the last page of the menu, system. I've got these two options in here, and people get a little confused by these: USB audio and USB-C. The option USB audio refers to the channels coming in and out of your computer, like talking back to the computer. Normal means you have ins and outs going both into the MixPre and out of the MixPre. By tapping that and changing that to stereo out, this just sends a 2-track stereo out to your computer. It doesn't bring anything in from your computer. USB-C relates to how this physical cable connection is going to be interacting with your computer. Right now it's set to audio, which means this USB-C connection is not only providing power, but also a data stream in between the MixPre and the computer to provide audio, and the channels can travel between the two. If I tap on that and change this USB-C to power only, guess what? If I try to go on this Mac right now and set up a USB audio channel, I can't do it because it's only a power connection. It's just using the computer to power the MixPre. So unless you have this set to power only when you did your file transfer, that's the only way you could get the computer to not automatically change the sample rate of your MixPre. You would have to make sure this is set to power only. All right. Good question. Let's see what's going on. I know there were some earlier questions as well. Let's see. Oh, there's a whole lot going on. Just trying to catch up on everybody's questions. Apologies for the dead air. Oh, here was a good one. Does USB 3 output always set itself to L after any power cycle, even if you remove and save settings? No. Anything that you change in that USB output menu should stay the same throughout a power cycle. If it's not staying the same, I would definitely update your firmware, because I'd wonder if that was, perhaps something in an old version of a firmware that was we fixed or something like that. And if you still have issues, definitely reach out to support with that question. All right. I'll go back to my few right here, and then looks like we're coming pretty close to the end. We got about 10 minutes left, so hopefully we can get through these final questions. Let's see. Oh, someone had asked, can I tag on, meaning like link together, using a MixPre 3.2 with a MixPre 10.2 together to have more inputs on a recording? And if so, how can that be done in the field? So the answer is, someone answered. It's resetting to L after newest firmware. We'll contact support. Good. We'll try and work through this issue. Thanks for reporting. All right. So, can you connect a MixPre 3 and a 6 or a 10 together to have more inputs on a recording? Kind of. You can time code them together so that you start and stop recording all at the same time, but you can't have all of those channels on one singular file, say that gets recorded to the 10 or something like that. Like, you couldn't actually bring in, an additional 6 channels and record the 6 plus all the 10 and have a 16 channel file. You would have to do that in the edit, which is fairly easy to do. The way you would timecode sync those together is you would make one the master clock, and if you were using like a MixPre 3, you would send timecode out of the stereo out if the MixPre 3 was the master clock. I can show you where that is. If we go in the menu right here, tap on that, you'll see the timecode menu. Oh, right now I'm in time of day. So if I wanted to make this one a master clock, and let's say I wasn't running with the camera, if this was just for like an audio recording, you could do record run even. And record run has it so the time code begins at 0000, and as soon as you hit that record button, it starts counting. And you can set that up to set a flag to is it on? No, it would be back in the record menu. You would set up this record trigger like a flag on the other MixPre where you go in there, and you could set it to be hooked up via time code. Now, it's not going to work in this mode because I'm in record run because I'm showing this as the master example. But on the one that was following the master, you would just change it to the external time code option, which would be aux in 1 on a MixPre, and you could trigger recordings so they'd all be following along with one another. All right, I'm going to put this back to time of day though for now. Okay. Let's see what else I have in here. If there were any more. Someone had asked this question. I'm just going to address it again to really send the point home. When using as a USB interface, can you monitor the PC audio in your headphones without assigning to specific inputs? The answer is yes. And you would have to do that by using the headphone preset option, which was, I believe, the first example that we gave. So if you wanted to hear that stereo audio from the PC, use the headphone preset option, and then you can use all the channels you need to on your MixPre. Okay. How can I change the display show recording runtime versus time of day? So as soon as I am to click, let's go to the MixPre really quick. This person asked, how can you switch the time code display versus the recording display? These two you can't swap together, but you'll see as soon as I hit record right here, I have a runtime down there at the bottom. So I can't swap these numbers out, but you can see very clearly that you've got your little runtime down there. And if you want, you could pull that up on the Wingman application on a mobile device, and you could see that on there. Actually, you know what? This is a great example. Let's do this. So if I go to System, got to make sure Bluetooth is turned on. I have an M1 Mac sitting over here, and I don't know if you guys know this, but you can install mobile applications on an M1 Mac. And so, although we might have a little bit of HDMI issues, I'm going to unplug and replug it again. Hopefully this HDMI will play nice with us. We'll try one of these good old, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in again? Hopefully. Oh, we got it. All right, we got a bunch of different MixPres in the building here. So I need to make sure I'm connecting to mine, which ends right there. All right. So you can see I've got this big time code counter up at the top. This is kind of the view you would have if you had it on like an iPad, you know. Oh, I don't think I can't adjust that window. So if I were to record, you can see I've got my little counter right here. I can't swap these two numbers. I know people were probably asking for that because they're familiar with the big A time on the 6 series devices where you can swap the two. But you still have it there. You need a bigger screen. I say go to Wingman. All right, so in the last like little 5 minutes here or so, I want to address something. So a lot of people are wondering, what's going on? Why is Sound Devices doing a stream on the MixPre? What's up? And that is because we have some big updates for the MixPre II Series coming very soon that you need to be on the lookout for. So if you want to be informed for these new things that will be coming very shortly, the best thing you can do is to stay in the loop with us. So you can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and the like, or you can sign up for our email list on our website. So visit sounddevices.com. You'll see an option here. I'm even going to give me 1 second before we go to the computer because I got to change my windows here. So we're not looking at a copy of myself on the stream. All right. we can go over there. So this is something I just want to show everyone. If you own a MixPre or you own an 8 Series or you own any Sound Devices device, the number one thing that you should do as soon as you get that device is register your product. So you can see we've got all these nice little tabs right here. Click on support, this manage product registrations page. This is where you go if you want to register your products. If you go to this page and you make an account on there, you can have all of your lists of all your different Sound Devices products. And the important thing about registering is that it increases your warranty on your product from 1 year from the purchase date to 2 years. So if you ever have any sort of issue or question, or say you have some problem where you need to report the serial numbers of the devices, some insurance thing or whatnot, make sure to register your products so you have these all in one place. We know what you own, and we can immediately help you if you ever, have questions or whatnot. Another thing I should point out as well is to keep an eye on our plugin store. If you're familiar with the MixPre, you may know about our MixPre plugins. I'll briefly show them here. So if I go to the plugins page, we've got Noise Assist, Mix Assist, Ambisonics, and the Musician plugin. There's also the Reporter plugin up there, although that is, a pretty specific plugin, so I'm not sure if everybody needs that one. Keep an eye on these pages and be sure to stay informed because things are coming soon, guys, and it's going to be very exciting. So on that note, let's see if I have anything else that I needed to run through. Just making sure to check my notes, cross my T's, dot my I's, as you may have heard. If you have any further questions after going through this USB audio tutorial, feel free to let us know your questions at support@sounddevices.com. If you didn't get your pre-submitted question answered, go ahead and you can send a follow-up to support, and I'll be sure to jump on there and see if we got your question all sorted out. Let's see if there's anybody else here in this chat. Let's see. I don't see anything that is specifically related to the USB thing. But any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I do have a list of interesting questions I would like to address, hopefully in the future. So a lot of you have ideas out there that seem to be following along our same train of thought. So anyway, I hope you are all well, and we'll see you next time. Take care.